This is the episode where the producer and an animator for One Punch Man Season 3 said they poured their blood, sweat, and tears into this episode, and Episode 5 and Episode 9 was the most effort they put into the entirety of Season 3. And at long last, Episode 9 is officially here. It is aired today, and we all get to see exactly what the producer and the animator was talking about many weeks ago before this episode came out. Now, before I dive into the nitty-gritty of this episode, if it's good, it's bad, it's terrible, whatever, the point of the matter is I do want to set up the foundation for why I'm going to discuss what I am in this video. First off, there was a reveal that came out last week where we found out that the animators are working on the latest episodes of One Punch Man literally a week, or the very week it airs. So it's speculated that when an episode comes out, like for instance episode 9 today, they're potentially still working on the episode hours up until the episode officially airs for the entire world to see, which explains the lack of quality control and literally so many mistakes that keep happening throughout the show, with stuff that's just amateur mistakes, to added fingers, to messed up sequences, to just the way certain scenes are cropped or used, PNG scrolling on the screen. There's a lot of reasons now why that happened, because if they're working on the episode literally up to the very point they have to hand over the episode to a broadcasting company, it makes sense why there is no time to quality control a said episode. So with that being said, when you go into this episode, you have to realize that it was already stated by a producer and an animator that this episode would have the most work done for it. And after watching the episode, I will say it is not the worst that Season 3 has offered us. It is nowhere near the level of Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, 4, 6, 7. This, however, is an episode that I would say that is the second best episode of the season, right behind Episode 8 that we got last week. However, that doesn't mean that this is a good episode. So let's just get right into it, because I'm going to rip the band-aid off and just explain why this is not necessarily a good episode. And I feel like even the episode last week that apparently didn't have as much effort put into it still is just leaps and bounds better than this episode and this product that we got for Episode 9. So, first off, the episode does have, and I'm just going to say, it has animation. It actually has movement. It's not just lip flaps. You actually see characters moving. You actually see their facial expressions change. It's not static images most of the time. You actually see movements. Now, there is examples of PNGs and low quality here, like this scene here. It's just a PNG scrolling, but there is, for the most part, movement throughout the episode, but nowhere near the same level of movement that Episode 8 had, which already is an inherent issue, because Episode 8 in the grand scheme of things wasn't the best episode of all time. I wouldn't even put it in the top 50 best episodes of the year for 2025, but in terms of what Season 3 has offered, Episode 8 was the best, and I rated it around a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And now that you know what I rated last week's episode, you could assume that this episode is definitely of lower quality. But why is that? Well, first of all, the movement isn't as fluid as the previous episode, and it's not as consistent throughout the entire fight. There is sporadic moments of brilliance, of great movement with the characters with Child Emperor and Phoenix Man, but then it goes back to just PNG sliding and very, obvious, cutting corners for animation and art to be able to save time. Now, this is why I started off the video talking about, their production and how they're potentially working on the episode up to the very moment of its airing, which it explains some of these fundamental flaws. However, I do want to also reiterate that it's been already said weeks in advance that Episode 5 and 9 was the most effort that Season 3 has gotten. So you would expect a higher level of product and episode than any other episode that came before it for Episode 9. Because from my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Season 3 is only going to have 12 episodes. And this is Episode 9. And if this is the best it's going to look, then yikes. Now, obviously, there could be some standout things that come out of nowhere, like Episode 8 was just unexpectedly good, but obviously it brought up a major question: why? Why was it so good for such an episode that was about flashy flash, when there's just so many other things that they could have focused their attention on? Like, for instance, Phoenix Man here, there is an obvious thing that could have been given more time and effort. But I'm going on semantics and on a tangent here. The point is that Episode 9, it is very inconsistent. it looks good, but inconsistent. And I'm going to show an example of this, actually. So if you go here to around 7 minutes and 36 seconds, you will see Phoenix Man's design. Just look closely at his design here. He has his regular outfit. Actually, I need to go back a little bit further. Okay, so you can see his design here at 7 minutes and 28 seconds. This is what he looks like. And when you see this design, it does a zoom in on his face, close up to obviously save, cut corners and animation, art, and all that. They don't have to draw his full body and movement. But upon this sequence, when he is talking, you have this brief little zoom where he goes behind Child Emperor, and as Child Emperor is trying to figure out what's going on, he's sped up, you will clearly see the design of Phoenix Man changes in mid-combat. Now, it's very apparent throughout the episode that, yes, his design continuously changes as he evolves. But the way the transition is done, especially in this scene, is very jarring. Like, look, I'll let it continue to clip play here, but basically, as he's going in and disregarding the lack of animation here, it's really just a PNG scrolling or staying static, just looping animation, you see his design just completely changes. Completely different color scheme, different, helmet, costume, everything. It's completely different, and there is not a proper sequence to really demonstrate the shift in his design in that brief moment, and it feels very jarring when you see this, and this actually continuously happens throughout the episode. Here's another scene with an inconsistency with his form shifting. Like, look at this very closely. So this is 8 minutes and 37 seconds. You will see he's fighting off Child Emperor, and you can literally see in that brief moment, he shifts down to a form without the flame. Now, you can take this as, like, okay, he's just powering down a little bit, but it just looks very weird and awkward in movement. It looks like something's missing, like it should have had a whole sequence of him detransforming and retransforming. There's a lot of moments throughout this within this fight that indicate that there was just like some weird inconsistencies with the form changing. And also, I would like to point out this scene here where he's holding the blade. It is just a loop animation, like 2 seconds of looped animation playing as he's holding it, and there's constant little cutting of corners with stuff like this throughout the episode. So there is an illusion of movement continuously in episode 9. So, to get to the heart of the issue, the animation isn't as rock bottom as, like, the previous episodes, but the point I'm trying to get at is that when you look at anime, for the most part, for the last few years, it's looked relatively consistent where it has movement throughout the episode, which is, I think, kind of like a common standard you should have. I mean, anime, at the end of the day, is movement and animation. It's not trying to watch, like, you're not trying to watch static manga panels that are colored. You expect movement. And so, when majority of your episode doesn't really have movement, it's like, can you even consider it an anime at that point? It might as well just be, like, just a brief GIF or a loop of brief animation with just colored manga panels. That's really it. And this episode still has that type of issue, but it is still nowhere near like the bottom of the barrel that we've gotten, but I still don't think it even reaches the average standard for what an anime episode really should be. Not even just in the last 5 years, but just anime in general. I feel like it really lacks in a lot of areas, and like I said, there's brief moments that spark beauty, but it still is extremely inconsistent, and it showcases just the inherent issues with the entirety of Season 3 of One Punch Man. Now, with the animation and art out of the way, we do need to talk about the big elephant in the room, and I feel like a lot of people, especially anime-onlys, are not really going to realize this, and I'm going to dive right into it. First off, this episode, for the most part, is non-canon. So, if you're wondering what I mean by that is that Murata, the actual artist / the person that's redrawing One Punch Man and redoing it in manga form, he has moments when he's writing chapters, he will retcon the chapters and redo them again with new chapters. He's done this considerably a few times, especially in this arc. It's very noticeable, and this entire segment is basically retcon chapters that are no longer canon. And for some reason, JC staff decided to use the retcon chapters that actually have a lot of choreography, more so than the canon material. And that's just a very weird decision. It is, because it's like, when you look at the entirety of Season 3, not just this episode in like a closed space, but it's very clear One Punch Man Season 3 is having issues. I mean, we all know that one, but why go out of your way to adapt retcon material that's no longer canon, that has a lot more movement in it, than adapting stuff that's canon and has less movement in it, even in the manga? It's just a strange decision. And this is more or less something you could say about the entirety of Season 3. Like, you have the whole PV trailers and using content from PV trailers and then making them look worse. These random color filters of blue and orange, green, or whatever on characters that just look really off. There is just continuous questions questions I ask myself, why make this decision? Why do something like this? Like, if you're going to use promotional material, why not just copy and paste it? I mean, nobody was complaining about the material. People would let it slide if you're hurting that bad on production. Just use the promotional material without editing it. And the same thing can be here. It's like, if you're hurting on time and you're having a lot of deadlines facing you and you're not able to get things out properly or finish the work like you would want and quality control it, why would you adapt content that is just more in movement and heavier on the animators? And I don't know who to really blame for this one, but one thing I do want to say about this episode is that the actual director was not storyboarding the entire episode. So, for those that are unaware, that haven't understood the staff listing, for the last 8 episodes of One Punch Man Season 3, the director of Season 3 has been storyboarding every single episode, besides this one. And if you're wondering why that's an issue, because the director shouldn't be storyboarding, first off. The director should be doing fixes, quality control, overlooking everybody else, making sure everything is on task. But the fact that the director had to more or less do the storyboarding for every single episode is a problem, because he's not able to focus on his entire job and what he needs to do, which also systematically causes a lot of issues that we've been seeing throughout Season 3. So I think that just, that's something to really take note of, is that he didn't storyboard this episode, and when he's not storyboarding, we see that there isn't these random filters that are poured into it. Now, I'm not saying that's entirely his fault, but at the end of the day, he is the director and he is the storyboarder, so who really knows? Anyways, getting into the heart of the matter, I think that this episode is worse than the previous one, not just because of the lack of art and animation, but because of the material it covers, and it uses retcon material that is not canon, and it hurts the narrative, it hurts interactions and development and all that. It's not good. And I know there's going to be anime-onlys that don't care about this, but the problem is this is going to cause inconsistencies later on. If, by God, there ever is a Season 4, it will cause inconsistencies. And at this point, with the damage that this episode technically does to the material, to some of the characters, you kind of need to just redo the entire episode. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, yes, I know everybody wants a remake of One Punch Man. Oh, I'm there with you. But at the end of the day, it has adapted the story. It has. And so you can at least say it's tried to adapt the story. But this is the first time now that it's not really adapting the story. It's just going its own way. And I'm like, okay, this needs to be redone. This is bad. This is not good. So if they continue to do this, I'm more or less curious if they are going to continue to use retcon material for the rest of Season 3. Or hell, even into potentially a Season 4. So, yeah. Not good, not the worst, but what do you expect from One Punch Man Season 3 at this point? It has fallen so far from grace. It's crazy that this is the same series that has been hyped up and just beloved by millions of people for over a decade, and it's treated like this. It's just, it makes me sad. Every single week I take a look at, a new episode. I want the series to succeed. I want the series to be good, but I'm left more or less disappointed. And that's just sad, man. Really sad. I'll leave it at that, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Helps me out a lot. Leave a comment on the video. Helps with the algorithm. But Chibi out.